Γεια σας φίλοι μου. Σας καλωσορίζω και πάλι στη διαδικτυακή τηλεόραση του ΟΠΕΚ, του Ομίλου Προβληματισμού για τον Εξυγχρονισμό της Κοινωνίας μας. Σήμερα έχουμε μια διαφορετική συζήτηση. Θα επικεντρωθούμε πάνω στα ζητήματα που σχετίζονται με την Κύπρο και το μέλλον της, εντός Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης βέβαια, έχοντας όμως συνομιλητή μας τον Οζντίλ Ναμί, τον πρώην Διαπραγματευτή της Τουρκοκυπριακής Κοινότητας, έναν άνθρωπο ο οποίος έχει περάσει μέσα από διάφορα στάδια τα τελευταία χρόνια στις προσπάθειες για την επίλυση του Κυπριακού, τις μεγάλες ελπίδες, τις μεγάλες απογοητεύσεις, και σήμερα ίσως είναι μια καλή αφορμή να κουβεντιάσουμε μαζί του και να καταλάβουμε περισσότερο πώς σκέφτεται η Τουρκοκυπριακή Κοινότητα σήμερα και πώς αντιλαμβάνεται αυτό που εμείς ονομάζουμε ένταξη στην Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, για την οποία η Τουρκοκυπριακή Κοινότητα δεν έχει την πλήρη απόλαυση αυτών των δικαιωμάτων. Hi, Οζντίλ Ναμί, we are very happy we host you here in our web TV. I was saying that 2024, which is an election year for whole Europe, marks also several anniversaries in relation with the Cyprus issue, and some of them are very sad, are connected with the long history we have with great disappointments and tragedies of the past. Some others are related to the European orientation of the country, since we mark 20 years from the day of the accession. I would like to ask you, what is the impact of these two sides of our history? I mean, the unresolved Cyprus problem on the one hand, and the tragedies of the past, and the European Union orientation, let's say, of the country.
Well, we were hoping that this EU orientation would facilitate unification, and that was the main driving force in 2004, in the period leading to 2004. I sincerely believed, and I still do actually, that being within the European Union is the strongest common vision we have among Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots. So it's something to cherish and to appreciate and keep in mind when we are talking about our future, our common future. However, maybe we go into detail later on, but due to the events that we all remember, what was supposed to unite us unfortunately ended up keeping us divided. This Turkish Cypriot leadership at that time refusing to be a part of this EU accession process of Cyprus, and then we changing that leadership, but not doing it in time. By the time we managed to do that change, Greek Cypriot side was already in, and at least the political leadership lost a lot of incentive to say yes to a unification plan, which was a compromise plan, of course.
What is unfortunate, excuse me,
yes.
What is unfortunate is that we didn't find the path towards utilizing in a different way the EU accession of Cyprus into the European Union, although we have the experience of 20 years now. So we have the pre-accession period, which was a very strong incentive to solve the Cyprus problem, and we don't see this happen for 20 years now, and we are trying to explain what is going wrong.
Well, I'm not surprised, because the reason for failure was this desire to use EU membership of Cyprus as a leverage against the other side, against Turkey, against Turkish Cypriots, which is a fundamental mistake. The EU philosophy actually works the other way. You don't use your EU membership as a leverage against the other. You use it to attract the other, to show the benefits of cooperation, coexistence, respect for the other. These are the EU concepts. But to use what EU has to offer as a leverage against the other side was a wrong mentality. It wouldn't work. It didn't work. I think everyone now realizes this. Therefore, we have to find a positive agenda on how can we use the EU element in support of rapprochement and revitalizing, rejuvenating a dead negotiating process. If I was in the shoes of a Greek Cypriot leader, I would do my utmost to remind Turkish Cypriots that all of Cyprus is in the EU. We are all EU citizens and we should benefit all from this. How can we do this? If the Commission wants to improve Green Line regulation by 10 points, I would suggest 20 points. I would push the EU Commission.
And you do believe that they are doing the contrary?
Yes, indeed. I experienced this.
You have experienced it?
I have experienced this directly. All our attempts to improve enlarged Green Line regulation was facing blockages, resistance from the Greek Cypriot administration. Direct trade regulation is another case in point. Instead of saying that, we want Turkish Cypriot products to be allowed into the European Union, let's do it this way. There was a very strict, categoric no to everything related to direct trade regulation. Or we have upcoming European Parliament elections. If I was in the shoes of the Greek Cypriot leadership, I would say, provided these conditions are met, provided that the single international identity of Cyprus is not put in jeopardy, we can have European elections in the north as well, if these conditions are met.
Mm-hmm. You mean to organize also the ballots, etc.?
Yes, everything. Why not? Because if we are working for a solution under UN, whereby in the end, hopefully, there's going to be another referendum, and we will vote for the federal settlement. If we are able to accept such a setup, why can't we get inspiration from that and apply it for European Parliament elections?
You mean there is much room for initiatives inside the framework of the European Union, and we are hesitating of taking these initiatives?
Yes, the leadership, unfortunately, has been very reluctant even to consider such things, because they feel that EU is a leverage, and that should be used as a means of pressure instead of as a means of attracting the other and creating more interdependencies. And the end result of this very classical win-lose approach is cementing the division of the island, pushing Turkish Cypriots into ever closer integration with Turkey instead of the rest of the island and the European Union. And unfortunately, we are facilitating a more ingrained division rather than building bridges in preparation.
Still, you have suggested a number of political initiatives or measures, actions related to the political character of the issue. What about other measures, other openings, let's say, in the framework of the European Union, which have to do also with the lives of ordinary people? I would discuss more openly with you if there are ideas in relation also with the daily life of people.
Well, I mean, these are very much linked with each other, aren't they? I'll give you another example. During the last round of negotiations at Akıncı's time, we had established an EU ad hoc committee to prepare the future Turkish Cypriot constituent state to adopt and implement the EU acquis.
The famous harmonization process.
We didn't call it harmonization because of its political connotations, but we gave it this long name, EU Ad Hoc Committee. So, and we initiated this work. So, this prepared the Turkish Cypriot institutions to adopt and implement the acquis, and it started to have impact on our daily lives. We were sending EU experts together with Greek Cypriot technical people to the fields, to the farms, to inspect, to make sure health and sanitary conditions are better, so that not only a future integration, unification will be easier, but also starting from today, people will start seeing what EU can offer to their daily lives. Unfortunately, the day after the collapse of Krand Mοντάνα, upon the request of the Greek Cypriot Minister of Foreign Affairs, this EU work was cancelled, abolished, totally abolished.
I remember that days, and thanks for reminding us the lost opportunity we have in that period. We will discuss it in connection with the current efforts also, όζντιλ ΝΑΜΙ. How do you assess the mission of the personal representative of the UN Secretary General, Mrs. Olkin? She has just completed her third trip into Cyprus. Now she's traveling back and she says she will prepare a report. What is your assessment?
Well, I listened to her press statement yesterday. It was it gave the impression that she has failed, and she will report the situation to the Secretary General and ask for guidance on what next to do. I'm not surprised that she failed because her mandate was wrong. And I even had sent out a tweet about this, and I've been saying this for a very long time. Any attempt to find a common, to redefine a common ground between the two sides is a futile effort. Instead, if I was in her shoes, in the UN shoes, I would say we are not going to open a new debate about what should be the common basis for future talks. We have 50 years of accumulated work. We have Security Council resolutions. The basis is there. The problem is not the basis of the talks. The problem is we are unable to jump to the final point, stepping on that base. There is something missing. Her job should be to address that specific question. What was lacking in Krand Mοντάνα that we failed to make the final jump, standing on 50 years of body of work?
Mm-hmm. You said her mission was wrong or weak.
I think it was wrong because when you talk about finding a common ground, a common base, so you necessarily go into issues like how do we define, once again, sovereignty? How do we define political equality?
Open everything.
Then you open everything. You go into the content of the issue, whereas the content was not the problem. We have seen this in Krand Mοντάνα. The content was there. Secretary General said the solution was on the table. What was lacking to cross the finishing line was political will. So she should have said, listen, the content is there. We are not going to put it into the bin. Okay? So to Turkey's side, if I was in her shoes, I would say, listen, UN will not be a part of a new adventure. UN will say, if you want to finish it based on the UN body of work, we are ready to assist. However, to the Greek Cypriot side, UN should have said, listen, we are no longer satisfied with your approach of asking us to resume negotiations because negotiations did resume many times over in the past. We are unable to finish them. So tell us, how are we going to convince the Turkish side that this time you mean business and you are ready to finish it within a reasonable time? Tell us something so that we take it and tell it to the Turkish side. Because unless you do, until the time you do, Turkish side will not change its position. So she should have been firm with both sides on these grounds. Firm against Turkish side, saying that this opening a debate on a new basis is unacceptable for the UN at least. If you want to find another platform, be our guest, but the UN will not do it. But to the Greek Cypriot side, saying that just asking for resumption of talks as if nothing has happened, as if we didn't have the experience of 2004 or 2017 in Crand Mοντάνα, is not going to work. Mm-hmm. You need to put something new on the table.
So you don't see any real prospect of this effort? Most probably we will have to wait for what?
It seems, it doesn't seem, it is clear that we don't have two leaders who are passionate about reunification of Cyprus. One categorically rejects it, the Turkish side. The other one is just paying lip service to it. So they must be pushed towards that goal, forced. There can be two sources of pressure. One, internal, and the other one, external. Clearly, internal one is not coming.
It's much more a question of internal electoral processes.
Yes. Therefore, we need to see what is going to happen externally. On that, of course, Turkey and Greece are important. They are dialogue, they are good relations, their interests are important, but not enough. Because they were on board. They were on board up until Crand Mοντάνα, and we couldn't finish the crossing line. So just having Turkey on board or Greece on board apparently is not enough. So we have to have United States' attention, UK's genuine attention, Germany, France. They should come to the position that the time has come to put pressure on both sides to finish this work, because it is jeopardizing our interest.
Yeah. Do you believe that the continued situation is jeopardizing European interests in the region?
Well, they have a list, don't they? They have a list of issues. I think Cyprus issue is actually detrimental to their long-term goals. The threats from Russia are real. What is happening between Israelis and Palestinians is terrible, and we need to have a concerted effort of the West regarding that issue. And Turkey has to be a part of all these solutions if we want a sustainable new phase. However, Cyprus issue is the main stumbling block. So, the power of Turkey and Greece is not enough. They have to have EU and US on board, as well as UK.
So you speak more about the external factors, whether they are mobilized or not, but at the same time, these external observers say that, listen, we cannot do your homework.
Indeed. That means that they are not really that much interested for the time being. They have other priorities. When they are interested in a subject, they do it. For example, you have experienced this with what has happened with the Russians in
this special relationship of Russia with
exactly.
the Republic of Cyprus.
So when the interest of the United States and Europe was there, necessary buttons were pushed, and whatever has happened has happened. And most of them started coming to north. So your economy started to transform itself into a system without much Russian influence, let's say, your banking system, your whatever. So who did this? Who put the pressure? The Americans and the European Union. So when they have an interest in changing what is happening in Cyprus, they get involved and they do it. Unfortunately, we as Cypriots, I'm talking about both sides now, for the time being, we became very skeptical that anything can be done. Status quo is very sticky, and people are not on the streets demonstrating, pushing for the solution of the Cyprus problem. It's not on their priority list.
We don't have these dynamics because of the great disappointments of the past, but at the same time we have to admit that we are small communities, relatively small, and at the same time we are very much influenced of what the leaders are saying. the political parties in this kind of style. I'm not sure that we could have a genuine, real impact on politics in so small communities if we are just dependent, as Olkin says, Mrs. Olkin says, that we listen to the civil society. This is not...
Yeah, that doesn't mean much. I agree with you. So something else needs to happen. Something bigger needs to happen.
It's a matter only of having leaderships. We have leaderships.
No, I mean both has to happen. I'm not totally disregarding what needs to happen from the bottom up. We need to remain vigilant. We need to remain active as people who see that we have to solve the Cyprus issue. Status quo is dangerous. It's not sustainable. There are a good many people on both sides who sees this. However, our political clout is not strong enough. We have to find ways to become more vocal. But what I'm saying is, I don't think this will ever be enough. To change the current dynamics. So yesterday, Mitsotakis and Erdogan gave a press statement. They talked about enhancing the cooperation between the two countries, and they made a very small reference to the Cyprus issue. In my mind, what Erdogan said, he said that the solution of the Cyprus problem is important. It must be based on the realities on the ground, and it will be good for everyone. Okay, so he didn't talk about, he didn't construct sentences like this. I have told Prime Minister Mitsotakis that the only way is a two-state solution. We have made this clear. I have talked about this in UN. There is no going back for this, and I expect him to respect it. He didn't make sentences.
He avoided the rhetoric we have in recent years.
Yeah.
He avoided that.
He avoided such a strong... When it came to Hamas, for example, he was much more passionate, strong, forceful, and he became very emotional, moved by that, but not on Cyprus. So what I understand from this is this. Turkey gave a signal saying that, listen, if I see a credible reason to change my stance on the Cyprus issue, I will consider this. But I don't see it right now. So I am in a wait and see mode. And I think Mitsotakis respected this. And he repeated his well-known position that the Cyprus problem must be resolved based on the UN resolutions, and we should continue to support the work of the UN.
The fact
left it like that.
Yeah, the fact that Greece and Turkey are in a position to discuss their differences and also build up on other levels of cooperation is a positive thing for the Cyprus issue. I guess this is also your opinion, but I would ask you, is it a strategic change in politics between the two, Greece and Turkey, to avoid tensions?
I think it is in their strategic interest. They are trying to find a way forward, it seems. Why? Because they see that it is in their strategic interest not to be in conflict, but in cooperation. Election periods are now behind us. When it's the election time, maybe you get political dividends with military posturing and with this hard talk. But after the elections, you are confronted with the realities and, delivering economic benefits to your people. For that, you need good cooperation. So we are in that phase now, which is a valuable period, and we have to make good use of it. But they seem to be at a loss on how to move, especially on the Cyprus issue. And I understand them, because they both have tried. Both Greece and Turkey have tried. And I've had a first-hand experience of this up until Crand Mοντάνα, but they couldn't do it. So probably they're waiting for something else to change.
What can change among the Turkish Cypriot community, Ozdil? Because what we received as Greek Cypriots, to be honest, listening to Ersin-Tatar rhetoric is a very negative message. And this makes things much more complicated when you need to address also the audience of the other community and discuss it, okay, let's try again. When you listen to Ersin-Tatar, it seems like we are returning back to old days.
Okay, does it matter? Ask yourself this question. What if, let's say, by a miracle happens, something changes, and a very pro-peace leader comes again? Like, for example, Mr. Akıncı. We had Mr. Akıncı.
Yeah.
And what happened? What if he comes back and becomes the leader today? All of a sudden, what can change? What do you think he will say to Christodoulides?
So it's a matter of having two in place at the same time?
Well, I mean,
moderate and wise people leading the community.
It's not, from my point of view, actually, it's not really that much relevant who is in power anymore. We need to have a concrete mechanism to go for a comprehensive settlement, irrespective of who is there. We had Talat and Christofias, Akel and Cetepe. We couldn't go for a solution. Then we had Akıncı and Anastasiadis, two leaders very strongly in favor of the Anam plan, yes vote. We couldn't do it, okay? So we have to learn from this. It seems there are other dynamics which are keeping us from going to a solution. What is that? The issue is, now that Cyprus became a member of the EU, and now we go back to this EU, this gave a big zone of comfort especially to the political elite over here.
You mean the Greek Cypriot leadership feels more comfortable with the idea
with the status quo?
With the status quo?
Yes, they are addicted to the status quo. Unless we give them a very, very strong reason to let go of this addiction, they will not do it. They will not do it. Whoever comes. And after living the experiences of 2004 and 2017, even if Akıncı comes, even if another very pro-peace leader comes, a Turkish leader can no longer simply resume negotiations based on the good faith of his counterpart.
We will need another half of a century to discuss.
Exactly.
But nobody's really interested among the outsiders to enter into a new round of negotiations with no meaning. I'm definitely sure about that. They might have, let's say, proximity talks, discussions behind the scenes, etc. But I don't see really any chance of having a new round of negotiations as we experienced either during the period of Talat Christofias or Anastasiadis Akıncı. It seems to be endless and with no real meaning.
Indeed. Then I totally agree with you. So I hope the Greek Cypriot leader also sees this as a reality, as a given, and then makes a proposal. If he continues simply to ask resumption of the talks, okay, this is no longer credible, not only to Tatar, but even to pro-peace, pro-unification people like myself, okay? So I'm saying that even if Akıncı comes, even if Talat comes, even if I would somehow be there, we would not be able to engage in resumption of talks without ensuring that this time, at the end of a reasonable time period, we will definitely finish. So if I was in the shoes of Christodoulides, I would make a genuine plea, saying that to the Turkish side, to Tatar, even to Erdogan, saying that, listen, I can understand your disappointments from past attempts. However, I cannot negotiate with you a division of my country. But what I can say is I am ready to resume negotiations in a time-limited manner, where at the end we will definitely have a decision.
A result.
And an exact decision, and there will be consequences on the side who rejects this solution that we create and we put to referendum. There will be consequences.
Meaning changing the status quo.
Changing the status quo. There will not be a return to status quo. So what I want to talk about is not reopening all the chapters of negotiations. Those are dealt with, I respectfully. What I want to talk about, Mr. Tatar, is come back and let's talk how are we going to resume in order to finish within a reasonable time. Okay? I was hoping Holguin would come with such a mandate and give this message to the leaders. Okay, and push them to talk only this, specifically this. Unfortunately, she failed to create this conversation between the relevant parties, and that's sad. So, if there is any leadership left in our both leaders, they should put the agenda in this manner, that our agenda is to finish.
To be honest, after the experience of Crand Mοντάνα, you have the best of what we can say about this tragic night. There is a sense that things went worse because of the reactionist approach of Turkey. I mean, if there was a moderate leader in the Turkish Cypriot community, now the whole picture among the Greek Cypriots would have been different. You know, the one side is influencing the other indirectly in the way they elect their leaders.
I mean, true, but this influence goes both ways.
Yeah.
When we were beginning to realize that there might be a failure of Crand Mοντάνα, we had warned the Greek Cypriot team. We told them, listen, if you fail to finish with us, there will be political repercussions on this in the north and in Turkey. In the north, people who are pro-solution will be pushed to opposition, and hardliners will gain political credit. And this is exactly what happened. And in Turkey, they will regret that they showed flexibility even on the guarantees issue, because they accepted the Guterres outline, which said the unilateral right of intervention is not sustainable, okay? Which was a big change from the 1960 treaties. And thinking that this will be, a very positive mood, and it didn't happen. So they regretted, and they turned their attention to get nationalist, conservative votes internally, which meant on Cyprus, you assume a hardline position.
Yeah, it means we are in a dead
exactly.
end.
But what I'm saying is, and I want to keep giving a glimmer of hope always. We have to keep that light alive. The election periods are over. The need to solve the Cyprus issue is now announced at the highest level in Turkey. Erdogan said, if we solve this, it will be beneficial for us, for the region. We have to do it. Okay? He said, based on the realities on the ground. So that's a room for flexibility. Okay? And left it there. So if I was in the shoes of the Greek Cypriot leader, because clearly
someone has to take the initiative.
US for the time being is preoccupied with their own election calendar. Without their leadership, Europe is not forthcoming. So we have two options. We either sit and wait for outsiders to push us, or if we want to do something, there is a way to do it. And the way is to realize that, for Turkish side, to realize that we have to drop down from this two-state rhetoric. And for the Greek Cypriot side, to accept that we cannot go back to open-ended negotiations without any consequences of saying no. If we have leadership who says that, who puts this on the table, and the UN facilitates this, then things can start moving in the right direction.
Do you think that the European Union will be more forthcoming to engage actively in the Cyprus issue in case we have the initiative coming out from Cypriots themselves, and I'm talking about the leaders?
Yes, when we are showing initiative, EU has been very helpful at the negotiating table. We have seen this. Many of the problems that we were unable to find a compromise on were facilitated. The solution was facilitated by EU experts, actually, when they said EU can accommodate this formula. This is in line with the EU acquis, so we could overcome. And the most tricky issue of sovereignty actually became easier to solve within the EU context.
Yes, because the sovereignty is a very. Yes. Now we are talking about European sovereignty.
Exactly. So, and in Crand Mοντάνα, we didn't even talk about the issue of sovereignty because it was resolved.
This chapter was completely closed. The European Union chapter, in all means.
Well, I mean, in Guterres' outline, I think it was paragraph number 3 that referred to EU, but within the context of granting some kind of an equivalent treatment to Turkey and Greece.
Yes, the issue of the citizens of Greece and Turkey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let me ask you something now. Christodoulidis is campaigning for some time that the European Union has to take the lead on the efforts, and he has designed the idea of exercising pressure to Turkey with a direct linkage with the enhanced customs union and other subjects of the positive agenda between Turkey and the European Union. Do you think that works?
Well, clearly, evidently, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. What EU can offer to Turkey in their bilateral things is well beyond Cyprus. It is regarding the politics that is taking place in Germany, in France, in Holland. So it's not up to Christodoulidis to tell European Union, do this for Turkey so that I get this for Cyprus. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work that way. And he doesn't have a credible voice, in my view, because he himself should start using EU in a more positive manner, like we discussed at the
beginning of our discussion.
So how can you ask EU to be more engaged when in Cyprus you are preventing EU, you are creating obstacles for the EU to be more engaged with the Turkish Cypriots, and you use EU facilities to keep this EU vision alive on both sides of the island. You should have been demanding more from the EU to make sure that there is more bridges between the two sides. On the contrary, whatever EU is trying to do, the current administration is trying to block it, saying this leads to recognition by implication, or this can turn into a state building exercise, so on and so forth. These are, of course, these are big farce approaches, because EU can never be a part of building a separate state in the north. The real reason why...
So the methodology is wrong.
Methodology is wrong. You have to engage EU first domestically, allow EU presence in and then tell European Union, we are doing all this, it's all going well, and this is our joint call to you to have this talk with Turkey. Use it in that manner, then it becomes credible. But keeping Turkish Cypriots at an arm's length, preventing EU Commission to deliver more, crippling all the even existing mechanisms, and then telling EU, come and be the
pioneer of the solution. Why
it doesn't work?
Tell me something, Ozdil, while we are approaching to conclude this very interesting discussion. You said you have retired from politics?
Yes, indeed.
How comes? You don't look so much as a retired politician. You are very active and you are following closely everything.
Actually, it is not by mistake that I am more active now, because being out of formal politics gives you a more freedom to speak out about new ideas, new suggestions. So this is what I'm doing. I saw that if whatever I could deliver remaining in the parliament within the official line, I have done it. And it was not enough. So we have to talk directly to people, generate fresh ideas. I am now part of a bi-communal group which involves Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot ex-politicians. For example, from the Greek Cypriot side, I don't mind giving names: Mr. Kasoulides, Mrs. Markouli, Andros Kyprianou, Mavroyannis. We all come together and we generate ideas. So you
generate ideas which have a certain impact and influence on the public?
Well, I mean, that remains to be seen.
I wanted to ask you mainly about one thing,
yes.
Ozdil. You said, I'm exhausted with all these efforts, let's say, of negotiating, etc. What you are going to give to the next generation? This is a very big question. It comes out to our minds since we are
what I can give is based on my experience, a formula for a future solution, for how to get there, a roadmap. Not the formula, the formula is there, but the roadmap on how to get there. Because I have spent more than 25 years trying to reach a solution. I've been starting with Denktaş, Tatar, even with Erol as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, then Akıncı. I have seen them all. I have worked with everyone. And I reached to a certain conclusion, especially after Krand Mοντάνα. So with this bi-communal group, we sat down and we created a one paragraph. And we sent a letter, but within that letter to Mrs. Holguin, we included one very important paragraph. We said that status quo is unacceptable. We have to resume negotiations from where they were left off. But we said, however, this time must be different. Yeah. This effort must be time limited. There must be a mechanism to overcome deadlocks. And we must do it in a way that does not allow a return to status quo. Okay, these are more or less the sentences we used. So this is our common new approach, a common approach. Greek Cypriot, Turkish Cypriot, retired politicians. From the Greek Cypriot side, those who had served DC and Aker, and from us, people who have worked with different leaders. So this is a strong message. So what I hope that more and more NGOs and people on the ground appreciates the importance of this and asks their leader, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Mr. Christodoulides, why don't you tell Tatar that I am ready to go back and this time it's going to be different. I'm not asking you to relive the experiences of the past. I understand. You know, and why doesn't Tatar say, and this is what we are asking him and to Turkey, that why doesn't he say, okay, I will go back, but I want a clear result. One way or the other, I want a process that will finish it. Why don't they say this? You know, we have to ask this question over and over and expose their thinking. Expose their thinking.
And when it comes to the younger generation, although these have a certain meaning for people who are well engaged in politics and they understand where we are now, and when it comes to the younger generation, in simple words, Ozdil, I'm questioning, Cypriotism is still resilient in our souls?
Everyone has a different level of feeling Cypriot or Greek or Turkish.
We have these mixed identities, but I'm talking about
in simple terms, status quo is not serving the future of our young people. Yeah. Okay, we are needlessly sending our children to military service. We are needlessly spending more than $1 million every day on military expenditures. we are, instead of focusing on real issues related to economy, health, environment, immigration, all which can all be sorted better within the context of Cyprus problem not existing anymore. By allowing the Cyprus problem to continue, we are giving a cover to mediocre politicians to continue with their ill-fated policies all the time and covering their failures under the blanket of the Cyprus issue. And they are addicted to this blanket like a baby is addicted to her blanket. Okay, and they don't want to let it go because it serves them well. And we have to get this out of the way and then live like a European country where people can focus on the real issues.
Yeah. Instead of going to spend your military service, go to spend some time with an Erasmus project.
With an Erasmus project or environmental thing or whatever, okay? Because we are losing our country in many sense of the world, environmentally, socially, everything. And economy is at subpar. Cyprus could have achieved much more. So there is a much brighter future for all of Cyprus, for our younger generation, within the context of Cyprus problem not existing anymore. And we have to make up our mind. Do we want to unite or do we want to go our own way like the Czechs and Slovaks did? Okay, have a velvet divorce. One way or the other, we have to end the status quo and start establishing normal relations with each other. My hope is that we see that a federal solution is the best way, and this will be a message of hope for the rest of the region also, and everything will work smoothly within the context of the European Union. It will be more efficient. But if this is unacceptable, if people fear being partners with the other so much, then let's go for the other option. But the current status quo is the worst, because on a tiny island, seeing each other as adversaries instead of good partners is not cannot be a good recipe for the future generations.
Ozdil, thank you very much for this discussion. I really enjoyed it, and we give the opportunity to our audiences to listen to authentic voices coming out from our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Αγαπητοί φίλοι, γεια σας.